So this is... There's more to skill than FFLogs by OryzaMercury. Now, we like Oryza videos. They're pretty good. He has good takes on stuff. So, we're gonna watch...
I honestly think that...
And, see what he says. So, before I go into this, like... People know what my view on logs are, and it's that they're a great tool because of their content. And competition is fun. But people that, like, base their fucking ego and, like, their overall skill as a player on their logs are just pretty short-sighted. You can absolutely use them to get better at the game. Like, that's, like, they're very good for that. But the raw numbers tell a very different story sometimes to the contents of the logs. And it's important to make that distinction. So with that said, I'm gonna go over here because people spamming abilities is annoying when I'm trying to watch something. And yeah, no loggy spam now. I am watching a video. I'll watch that after, Evan. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting.
Optimality is something that people should not think about. Most people. But I know that most players chase after it anyway. But it's honestly irrelevant to a lot of people. Even if it was casual groups, do you really want to be in a casual group that cares about their logs so much? Like, I personally wouldn't want to be in a group like that.
No.
I kind of wish people would just be more reasonable. So many people just care about so many, like, weird things that just don't matter at the end of the day. Like, overemphasizing specific skills and underemphasizing other skills. People just need to chill out a bit, and like, I honestly feel like people just need to value skill over like everything else if you can. Or I guess for a lot of people, they think that parse is skill, and I think a lot of people need to realize what it means to be skilled in the game, I guess.
So like, this is point number 1 already that I hit on over and over again. I would rather take somebody that isn't greeting. Like, if they're optimized and they play really well, then that's great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you can have both. That's you know, that's quite common. But what is also common is people thinking that, like, greeting uptime and dying is, like, somehow not their fault. When I'd rather someone that, for the sake of prog especially, focuses on learning and getting mechanics right, and you can optimize your DPS later. Once you know how mechanics work, you know what you can and cannot do. Like, you learn this on the fly. So your performance over time will get better and better. But people that just go straight into, like, prog, for instance, and just start moaning because of their uptime and shit like that, it's like, this is not the priority here. And it really annoys me when people put that much emphasis on it. Like, if you can get away with something, it's optimizing. If you can't, it's greeting. And more often than not, people are doing the latter. Now, this took me a while to realize as well. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Doomchild. Like, you figure that out on the go. Like, no one's asking you to just play super safe all the time, even when you know what's going on. But just don't cause problems. Just because of your fucking log, that especially during prog, is going to be irrelevant in a few weeks because people have more gear and shit. And I've seen this happen so many times. Like, it's so dumb. Like, logs are so good for seeing what happened in a pool, what people died to, how much damage people are taking. Like, when mechanics are happening. What mitigation is being used or not being used, etc, etc. Like, the list goes on. Like, they're so good for that, but everyone just tunnels on the number. And it's like, holy fuck, stop it. And then you get people like those we've seen in PF that will just, like, leave if they're not allowed to, like, reset the run because of their log. Like, even in a clear party, or even in a farm, where the aim is not to log, but to get the fight done. To farm, you know. I don't know, like, it's, like, there's a serious mentality problem. And, like, I used to be guilty of this too, like, back during Sigma, Alpha. Like, when I was learning, you know, I was probably putting too much emphasis on it too, because I got in this weird habit of just, like, log running a lot, and it probably, like, fucked up my thinking a bit. But it's like, as I got better at the game, when I went through, like, gate and stuff, like, I very much changed that thought process. Prog logs don't even log against clear logs, yeah. I mean, like, wipe logs, you know, they're not your pace. They're just wipe logs.
In some ways, parse is skill. Like, parse is an important part of skill. That's definitely true.
Yeah.
But I think just people overvalue it too much, right? Do you think
Yeah.
FFLogs using percentiles for rankings leads to more toxicity around the player base? Ooh, that's a really good question. And I actually think it does. I don't know if I would call it toxicity, but I would say it definitely
does.
leads to the culture we have today. I think that the fact that percentiles exist, or like a leaderboard exists, I think it leads to people overvaluing that particular metric, I guess.
Yes.
And it leads to like this culture of people using logs as an indicator of skill.
Yeah,
That's how I see it.
It does.
The
This is 100% true in my mind, but it's not true for everybody. Like, this is, to me, I think it's a minority. Like, most people don't care so much that they're willing to just fuck over other people just for a better percentile. Like, you don't see it that often, but you can tell when someone is doing that. Like, if they die and refuse to res and be like reset, if they refuse to adjust, maybe take a fucking L just to keep the run going, like, it happens, but it's not, at least in my experience, it's not that widespread. But I do agree that it leads to this thought process that if you don't get a good log every run, that you're like a bad player, and then that leads you to like being toxic because you're so like tunneled in on this idea of your DPS alone making you a good player. Now, as Oryza correctly says, like, yeah, doing good damage is good. Knowing your class rotation, optimizing your uptime is good. Obviously, like, no one is saying it's not. But again, stop tunneling. You would still make a leaderboard out of it. Well, yeah, I mean, like, percentile is just an example of the leaderboard. Like, it's the metric used. But yeah, you could just have straight DPS leaderboards without percentiles, and it would still be the same thing.
Percentiles is that they're a very objective way to look at data, which I think you would say is a better thing, right? If you look at percentiles, you know if a samurai is doing 21k DPS, for example, on E12S, you know exactly what that means. I think without percentiles, let's say you just had the raw number and you're like recruiting a samurai and the samurai 21k DPS and that's all you see, well, I feel like some people might wrongly judge that to be bad or wrongly judge that to be really good. I actually don't know which one it is, but they might judge it incorrectly, right? And I think that would lead to other problems.
You have to look deeper.
And I feel like people would probably still be toxic over performance because, like, there would just be this general status quo of, like, oh, this number is good. Like, you should be doing this much damage as a samurai on this fight and stuff like that. So I don't know how much it would change. It might not be the percentile itself, but just the tracking of damage. Then you go into this thing where it's like, well, if you don't get track damage, how are you supposed to improve and other stuff? What I'm saying is that I really wish Square Enix would have a built-in DPS parser that only shows your own personal DPS that you can't upload to a site like FFLogs. Because then, like, people would be able to track their own DPS, but, like, you wouldn't be able to really judge other people that much. I think that'd be nice. Well, the thing about parses...
I mean, I don't personally have an issue with, like, competition. Like, I think it's fine. Like, being able to, like, this is why percentiles exist, because you're being matched up against other people. And, that's nice. People like that. It's why people like the Heaven on High and Palace of the Dead leaderboards. It's why people like the PvP leaderboards. Like, having that degree of competition is fun. But what people don't realize is that you can do that without, like, while also being, like, a decent player. Like, just on the whole. Rather than tunneling on damage. Like, you can use your mitigation. You can adjust for people. And yeah, obviously in some cases, that might force you to lose a GCD or something, perhaps. But this is why you do, like, static log runs or, like, speed kills and stuff. Because in that scenario, everyone's on the same page. But adjusting and being able to do stuff, like, to help the group is infinitely more important in my eyes. So, like in POG scenarios. So, I don't know if having a personal DPS thing would really be the solution, because part of the reason people like these numbers is because of the competition. But people need to do it in a healthy way.
That sometimes you don't know if you do good damage. So the point of parsing is to be able to improve and like to look at the top parsers to be like, hey, what are they doing that I'm not doing, and to like get better.
Exactly
as a player.
this. Yeah.
Like that's what I see the point is, and I wish more people would use it that way. Parsing is so weird. I'll just say, like, I understand that people like speed killing and stuff, but like when I look at parses and people have like historical good parses from like week 3 when no one has gear, or on the flip side, they're only good parses
I don't know,
from
Brimmer.
like week 20 million where they copied someone else's GCDs from a spreadsheet. I don't get how people value parses so much. There's so much variability. Even if you care about damage done to that extent, which you shouldn't, but if you do, there's so much variability in like what a parse can represent.
Yeah.
That like I don't get why people put so much emphasis on it. And like I think I mean, healer is the most obvious example here, right? Everyone knows that you can get pretty good damage on a healer if you just chad your co-healer, and it doesn't mean you know anything about healing.
Yep.
Right? How do you feel
Completely
about people
true.
that parse farm something 500 times? If that's what you find fun, then I support you. That's my only thought. I would never do that. But if you want to do that and you just enjoy it, if that's just something you want to do, then like go ahead, right? As long as you're not being toxic towards other people.
Exactly.
Then, like, who am I to stop you? I guess the problem is the groups who overemphasize logs. Honestly, when I'm looking at logs, usually what I look for is when their first kill was, which is something you can just get from asking people anyway. So it's not like I need logs for that. And then after that, what I usually look for in logs is... What do I look for? I mean, I look at the percentile, right? Like, obviously, if someone who's like a 25th percentile parser all time, like, is applying for my static, I'm probably going to say no, because that's not enough to get a week 1 kill. But provided their logs are good enough, which to me is, like, typically 90 percentile or above, it also is role dependent. And, like, you know, some people quit tiers and other stuff. I don't know. Like, I do look at the logs, don't get me wrong, and I definitely take into mind, like, hey, this person has 100s or this person has 80s or whatever. But there's just so much else to think about. And I get that.
Now, let me tell you, chat, I'm no raid leader, okay? I've never led a group ever. Not once. But what I would look for, like, first kill is... Like, I get it, because if you want someone for, like, world prog, which Oryza does, by the way, like, then yeah, you want to know that they're able to kill early on. But it's like an experience thing, like, not everyone gets to do that. So it's kind of tough for people in that aspect. But the other thing I'd look for is consistency. You know, if I was not able to find examples of them dying to things that were their fault, and that, you know, they were otherwise doing mechanics exactly the same way and it was working out, then I think for me that would be a plus. But that's just my personal thought on it. Like, he's gonna know way better than me on how to find good players, okay? Like, let me tell you now. But he's right about the percentile thing. Like, if you have someone who's consistently doing, like, low damage, then you don't want that either. You know, like, there is value in the DPS metric. Well, yeah, Astros, but, you know, I think you'd probably look at things for the jobs that, you know, on the jobs that they're applying on.
Like, if you want to look the best you can be to apply for a group, you want to have as high logs as you can. I feel like it shouldn't be that.
No, please!
Peggy 12.
Peggy 12! Wait, is this wrestling? No, it's by Cock Media. Okay.
Important.
Moving on.
FFLogs as a tool for improvement is like super good. I think FFLogs is like an amazing tool for improvement, and I used it as a tool for improvement when I was new. I was like a green ninja, and like this monk was like, hey, I looked at your logs, like you should work on your dot uptime, etc. And he's like, here, you can see your dot uptime if you use this part of FFLogs and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, and then I went from green to blue. I actually have a guide on how to use FFLogs on my YouTube channel, shameless self-plug. Do I look at highest parser or median?
Nice.
Highest. Median, or like, median doesn't mean anything. You can just not, do you know how many people just don't upload their bad logs because they care about their median for whatever fucking reason? I feel like that means fucking.
Yo, we know people that do this, chat. We know people that do this. See, like, Like median to me, if the person uploads everything, or at least often, I think median can mean something. But a lot of people don't do that. I mean, like, for example, like, I don't upload all my kills anymore. All the kills I've done in PF chat might not have even been uploaded by now, because I don't upload anymore. If others do, whatever, but I don't. But, like, it's easy to tell when someone just isn't. Because they won't have, like, that large amount of kills, and they'll just be, like, straight medians in, like, the 98 region. Median gets destroyed by PF, yeah, but I think that's what makes a more authentic median in a way. Like, if someone had, like, 20 kills of something and their median was great, I'd be just as concerned as if I saw, like, 15 kills of the same fight and they were, like, 99 median or something like that. As an extreme example. Like, those both to me are equally as concerning. Like, it's weird. I've uploaded every single kill I've done. I mean, that's fair. Like, some people just live log all day, every day. I would just recommend you clean out your logs folder. Clean out your ACT logs folder, chat. Alright? That accumulates gigs worth of fucking logs. Like, it gets big. Trust me. If you're running short on space, make sure to check that folder.
Nothing.
I say this every so
do
often.
That, but they want their medians to look good, so now median is a useless thing. I think it's hard for new players because gear is a confounding factor. Because like new players who join in the middle of a tier could be getting low parses because they just don't have as good gear as everyone else who's clearing the fight.
Gear is a big factor as well.
That, like, if a new player clears E12, they're probably competing against a ton of people who have already cleared E12, right? Because the majority of uploads for a fight
true.
are
like, rankings are so skewed.
And if you're doing reclears, you might have the raid weapon already. And competing against someone who has the weapon, if you don't have the weapon, let's say you have the primal weapon, that's hard. That is not easy. And it could be discouraging. I could see that. But WoW Logs has eye level exposed, right? So at least there's that.
Yeah, there's eye level
FFLogs,
bracketing in WoW Logs.
We don't have an API or anything. So I feel like I'm just so divorced from this kind of thing. I just like live in my own little bubble, I will say. Like, you know, doing hardcore like raid stuff where I pretty much only raid with other people who also do hardcore raid stuff, and the community is really small and like very insular. I feel like I kind of lack perspective of what most general raid base finds important, because I just like don't have a lot of acquaintances that are in that realm. Usually it's just I learn stuff from stream, like when people talk about stuff. It means that DPS checks at this point are not terrible now.
I wish we had eye level logs. I don't think it's necessary, because WoW logs, for example, that have it, it's because their gearing is just so fucking wild. Like, and there used to be a lot of, you know, wall forging and titan forging memes, so they had to make it at all fair, because people's eye level was just so wildly different all the time. Whereas we have a very rigid loot system here, which you can complain about. Like, there are problems with it, such as it's boring. But I think here, like, it's a more level playing field. You're never really competing with more than 20 eye level difference, which is a lot. Yes, like, that's a big difference. Gear from crafted to raid is, like, up to, like, maybe, at this point, probably, like, 3-4k difference at most, maybe. I'm not sure. Like 4k DPS. I'm not sure. Maybe somewhere between 2 and 4 for like the highest DPS. I'm not sure on that one completely. I'd have to look, but the point is here you know how to get to that point. Whereas on WoW you'd maybe have people who are like just really lucky with their drops and had like massive like RNG in their favor or something. So at least here you know kind of what you have to do to get better gear. If that makes sense. And yeah, people here, I mean, I always say don't care about your logs until your BIS, and that kind of rings true, because that's the only time that where you stand with everyone else, like, bears any matter at all. His room is even more gamer than mine. Well, because there's boxes everywhere.
So devotion to the fact you need to be parse god is dumb. Oh yeah, I agree with that for sure. If I were recruiting for ultimate, I would be like, I would give the logs a cursory glance to be like, hey, Did they clear? Did they clear a fight without dying a million times? Do they do at least like blue damage? Like if they parse gray, there might be problems still, right? Like yeah, did they buy it clear? That kind of thing. I would care about that. But it's like more of a cursory glance, more of like a routine check than anything. Like, hey, I need to make sure I'm not getting like duped here. This is just like a backup check, and I don't really put much more stock into it than that. I need to check if they bought it clear. Either they don't have logs uploaded, or, and this is a really funny one, if they cleared with people who are known sellers.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see that, and it's really funny.
It is funny.
And like, there's a log uploaded, and you see like. You see like a list of like 6 or 7 people that you know sell content, and you're like, okay, this person just bought it.
Like sometimes like clear sellers will be like, yeah, check my logs, and you check their logs and it's just a bunch of very familiar names, and you're just like, okay, dude. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you're best buddies with them. It's quite funny, but more often than not, the logs are just hidden, or there's just no logs at all.
Clear, especially if they only have one clear. I think the only reason you should care about other people is to be like, hey, this person's better than me. Like, there exists someone who's better than me. Therefore, there's like some way for me to improve. I should figure out how to improve. That's the only time I really think about other people. Maybe that's selfish. I think like my personal opinion on it is like people shouldn't necessarily think about their skill level too much. Like as long
people
as they're
do sell
constantly
logs
thinking about what they can do better,
that is the thing.
And they're like trying to implement improvements as they play, that's good enough. Like I just got into Guilty Gear recently, right? And my friend who like plays fighting games competitively was talking to me about this, and he's like, yeah, honestly, you should just like think of 3 or 4 things that you can improve on, and then like for the next games you play, you should work on implementing those things like into your game plan. And then once you can like do those consistently, then you can try to add other stuff into your game plan. Yeah, sure, like you don't have to think about doing everything at once, and when you start, you suck. Like I suck at Guilty Gear, but like I'm improving.
This is a good way to learn. You just need to like. This is where XIV analysis like comes in handy.
Of just improving at the game. For me, I went from floor 4 in the tower, which is the ranked mode. Basically, the higher floor you are, the higher rank you are. I went from floor 4 to floor 10, and that felt really rewarding because you know I was spending a lot of time thinking about the game and like how to improve and stuff. And to see that improvement pay off felt really good, right? You know,
yeah, like this is true. I mean, like this again, this is where XIV analysis comes in, because if you have that much to improve on, then XIV analysis is good. Like as we know, it's not good for optimization, but it's good for bread and butter shit you should be doing with your class. So, at that point, you can take things out of there and work on those, and then take more things out of there, work on those, and you'll probably find you improve pretty fast. Like, the game might not fucking tell you, but all the tools we have around the game absolutely do tell you. And it's pretty good. Yeah, but yeah, people sell everything, chat. Like, people sell blue stuff, they sell logs, or sell mount runs. Like, Ultimate Savage, like, everything gets sold, chat. Like, it's more rampant than you think.
For anyone who like really cares about parses, like I would like to think personally, I would like to think that I'm a pretty good player, right? I might not be like the best player in the game, but you know, I clear things relatively fast. World second, world third, whatever. My parse
relatively fast. Only world second or world first. Okay, Oryza, there's no need to be so modest, dude. Come on, man. You're insane.
Parses are like, I think I have like no oranges at all this whole tier. I think I have like only purples. I think my ultimate parses are all like blues or greens or some shit. Just to make a point about how like my logs are bad. Oh, I do have oranges. Okay, I lied. I have a few.
They're oranges, but they were orange like a long time
game,
ago because he doesn't.
Mentality is what matters, right? And like personal growth is what matters. Not like how good am I relative to the rest of the people. And I understand that it's like really hard to not be competitive. I'm an extremely competitive person, so I know what it's like to be like, I want to be better than anyone else. I want to be the best. Like, I care so much about my percentile. Like, I get that. But I think like the healthiest mental approach to like learning any game is to just see yourself improve. I feel like the topic of logs is so important in Final Fantasy in general. I think like, or I guess if you're in raiding, if you don't raid, then I guess it doesn't really matter to you. But if you raid at all in Final Fantasy, even if you're like me and like you don't like the fact that logs exist, we live in a society where logs are a thing that people care about. So you have to abide by those rules when you apply to a group, for example, right? It doesn't matter how much you ignore logs, you have to face the reality where if you apply for a group, 99% of the time, they're going to ask you for logs. That's just how it is. So you have to like learn to reason about what logs are and like how you can use them to your advantage and like how to not feel bad about them and so on and so on.
Grammarly
like,
is your personal writing.
Like, unfortunately, like, no matter how much, you know, we bang on about logs not being as important as people say, like, the reality is you will be asked for them. So, like, endeavoring to improve is still preferable. Alright, let me catch up on chat. What do you think about people who sell clears? A friend of mine recently started a group who does have it, and I have opinions about it. I don't blame sellers for wanting to make gil. I blame buyers for being fucking stupid. Like, sellers, like, I don't like selling content at all. I think it's bad, but I think buying it is worse. Like, I think, you know, difficulty should be preserved and people should be, you know, should have nice things and be able to be proud of it because only the people that were good enough to do it have it. But unfortunately, we live in a reality where that's just not the case at all. Like, at all. Like, not even close. Like, that's a bubble I live in that I wish would be true, but it isn't. And it never will be. But, like, buying, people just want to make gil. Like, they don't really give a shit. Selling, if you buy, like, sorry, selling, like, yeah, people don't really give a shit. They just want to make gil. Or real money. Like, let's not pretend it's all gil sellers, okay? But buyers are something else. Like, if you buy that, like, just seeing people selling doesn't mean that you're justified in buying. And buying it is just fucking scummy. That's my opinion. Whisper me for log run, seller, improve your log. No thanks, bud. Ban those that link to Discord. Well, you can't prove the Discord is bad. Like, because, like, channels and shit can be hidden behind permissions and stuff. Like, if they'd for whatever reason decide to investigate a Discord, they could just hide the fucking channels that had anything, like, shifty going on. Like, they just can't do that. I've stopped caring being the best when it comes to MMOs. I mean, like, yeah, it's just not really, like, a case of being the best. It's cool. I think it's about, like, self-satisfaction and, like, wanting to be good the right way. Like, for me, like, I know I don't need 99s to be, like, a decent player, but it's just nice having 99s, because it means you played well and RNG favored you. But if I had a 99 knowing I hadn't pressed Tactician a single time, I'd feel bad. Because it's like, well, I didn't do what I could with my class to help the group. But a lot of people don't have that mentality. They just tunnel on their rotation. That's all they give a shit about. Like, that's the difference. Unfortunately. Tactician doesn't do damage. Yeah, it doesn't do damage. Why the fuck would you press it, God? That's so stupid. What the fuck? Yeah, wasted weave slot, man. Jeez. Terrible. Yeah, Oryza's video was good. Like, he's pretty much said exactly what I say. Except I say things in a less intelligent way, because it takes me like 15 minutes to kind of like get to my point. Don't know if you've noticed that, chat. It happens a lot.